Welcome to Pontification Nation. I'm your host, Ricky Skittle, coming to you live, as always, from my mother's basement. And we have a really good show lined up for you today. We're going to start out talking about the Jeffrey Epstein case, the opinion that we discussed in the last episode, my thoughts on the opinion, which was just scathing, demoralizing, and finally, it was fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to see how the government responds to the judge's opinion on their activity in this case back in 2006, 7, 8, and 9. But first, if you're new here, when you come to the landing page, please click the big red subscribe button. We really appreciate that. That helps the channel out a lot. And if you like the stuff that we're putting out there, comment and like on it so that other people can see it. Share it amongst your social media and your email lists. I appreciate that. You know, the big thing right now, I'm just trying to kind of get this off the ground and going. And the sooner we can get more people looking at it, the bigger voice that we will have here. And I think that's really what my goal is, to have a voice that can be heard, because I think there's a lot out there that needs to be changed. And this is the beginning, and we're laying the foundation of that change right here, right now. Also, you can follow me at Twitter, right here, at Ricky_Skittle. On Twitter, at Ricky_Skittle. I will have a Pontification Nation Twitter page up soon. And I think I'm going to start doing maybe some Ricky rants over on my Ricky Skittle YouTube page, which is currently unloved. But I believe that I have a lot to say that doesn't necessarily fit the Pontification Nation format, because I like to talk about facts and data and things that are provable and speculate on some things. But sometimes, you know, I have thoughts and opinions that maybe aren't exactly right for Pontification Nation, but are very good as far as people wanting to hear some of my other thoughts that may not be quite as mainstream. So in any case, follow me at Ricky Skittle on Twitter, Ricky_Skittle. And also please subscribe, leave a like, leave some comments. I will always try to comment back on your comments, and please keep it clean. Now, enough for the promotion. So, Jeffrey Epstein, just as a recap, a brief recap of who this person is. He is a notoriously reclusive billionaire. He started working at Bear Stearns. He had dropped out of college. He's apparently a brilliant person. There are some people who say that he is not. But in any case, when you look at some of his accomplishments with no college education and the deep physics and math that he does a lot of stuff with science and things like that. So in any case, that's kind of who he is. He worked for Bear Stearns for a short period of time, and then he left. There's little information about him leaving, but people who write about it, who appear to know about it, who knows what they really know, say that it was a little weird the way he left and when he left. So he founded his own firm and set the minimum account size at $1 billion when he was 24 years old. Talk about some cojones, right? When I was a financial advisor, I was hoping to get a minimum account size of $100,000 when I first started. So the guy obviously has his sights set on big things and wants to accomplish big things. Somewhere around 2005 or 6, a young woman's parents had reported to the Palm Beach Police Department that their daughter had been molested by Jeffrey at his home. And the police started investigating, and they were getting tons of pushback from the state prosecutors, because Jeffrey Epstein is a very connected man. And so they referred the case to the FBI, hoping they would get above the fray. But what it did was just open up a whole nother box of fray for Jeffrey to play in, as far as using his connections for his own benefit. Now, he has a private jet. The media have dubbed it the Lolita Express. He has a private island, Little St. James. We talked about that. I showed you the temple on there. He has a house in New Mexico. He also has a house in Manhattan, one of the largest, I think the largest private residence in New York. So the man is mobile and most likely is a pedophile. He hangs out with people like Bill Clinton, Naomi Campbell, Doug Band. President Trump has been known to associate with him and socialize with him. We're going to talk about that later as to the way that the media is covering the story, which is totally intellectually dishonest and disingenuous. But hey, who are we to judge their reporting? Oh, wait, that's what we do here. They're going to go down. Now, this judge is writing an opinion on the government's conduct because this has been in litigation for over 10 years apparently, because some of the victims did not have their rights according to the Victims' Rights Act. So when a pedophile goes to sentencing, all of his victims have the opportunity to speak at sentencing. They also have the opportunity to confer with counsel for the government to ensure that the plea deal is something they agree with. And none of that apparently happened in this case. So the judge starts like this. From between 1999 and 2007, Judge Jeffrey Epstein sexually abused more than 30 minor girls, including petitioners Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2, hereinafter petitioners, at his mansion in Palm Beach, Florida, and elsewhere in the United States and overseas. Because Epstein and his co-conspirators knowingly traveled in interstate and international commerce to sexually abuse Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2 and others, they committed violations of not only Florida law, but also federal law. In addition to his own sexual abuse of the victims, Epstein directed other persons to abuse the girls sexually. Epstein used paid employees to find and bring minor girls to him. Epstein worked in concert with others to obtain minors, not only for his own sexual gratification, but also for the sexual gratification of others. This man is sick. He is a sick person, and he hangs out with people who are extremely powerful and well-connected and who fly on his plane. If you believe the reporting, President Trump has also flown on this plane to this island. I have been able to find a zero scintilla of evidence of that, and I reviewed the flight logs. The basic gist of this opinion goes like this. Jeffrey Epstein raped and abused over 40 girls under the age of 18 and preferred his girls prepubescent and usually discarded them when their breasts got too large and things like that. After being caught in doing all of this and them having a significant pile of overwhelming evidence that he did this, he hired some very high-powered defense attorneys, Alan Dershowitz, Kenneth Starr, David Lefkowitz, all people who are pretty well known in the legal community and also have connections at the highest level of government. So the attorneys were able to negotiate directly with the attorneys for Epstein were able to negotiate directly with the attorney for the U.S. because they wanted this to be handled in state court so that he would not have to go to a federal prison, which is obviously, and do federal time, which are obviously much deeper and darker places than the Palm Beach County Jail in his own wing, where he was only required to be 8 hours of the day. So he wanted to remove himself from the publicity of this because obviously he manages billions of dollars. He's got all these other issues going on. He doesn't want the publicity of this. So his attorneys are emailing and negotiating over a period of time with the government about what they can disclose, about how they can disparage the victims, how they can make the victims seem less credible, and how they can get the best deal for their client. Now, nothing wrong with an attorney trying to get the best deal for his client. That's what they're supposed to do. There is something wrong with federal prosecutors breaking the law to kind of achieve this goal for him. Now, I don't want to get too in the weeds in this opinion, but I think it's important to kind of understand how the government was behaving. And what I want all of us to do is think, if this was you that did these crimes, would you have these types of communications? Would you and your counsel have these types of communications with the government? So think about that as I read to you this. On September 16, 2007, the line prosecutor wrote to Epstein's counsel indicating that the office did not like the factual basis for the proposed charges, as the office was not investigating Mr. Epstein for abusing his girlfriend. The correspondence further stated Andy recommended that some of the timing issues be addressed only in the state agreement, so that it isn't obvious to the judge that we are trying to create federal jurisdiction for prison purposes. I will include our standard language regarding resolving all criminal liability, and I will mention co-conspirators, but I would prefer not to highlight for the judge all of the other crimes and all of the other persons that we would charge. Also, we do not have the power to bind immigration. There is no plan to proceed on any immigration charges against either Ms. Co-Conspirator or Ms. Co-Conspirator. These are the people who are procuring women for him. In the same email, the line prosecutor wrote to the defense counsel about a meeting outside the U.S. Attorney's Office. Maybe we can set a time to meet. If you want to meet off campus, quote unquote, somewhere, that is fine. On about September 16, 2007, Epstein's counsel provided a proposed non-prosecutorial agreement to the government that extended immunity from federal prosecution not only to Epstein, but also to certain co-conspirators. On September 17, 2007, the line prosecutor wrote to defense counsel Jay Lefkowitz, please send a document to my home email address, redacted, and give me a call on my cell, redacted, so I can be ready for some discussion tomorrow. On September 17, Lefkowitz responded, do you have another obstruction proffer I can review that you have drafted? Also, if we go that route, would you intend to make deferred prosecution agreement public? On September 18th, the office responded, MPA would not be made public or filed with the court, but it would remain part of our case file. It probably would be subject to a FOIA request, but it is not something that we would distribute without compulsory process. So, just to give you like a little color on what they're discussing here, because that's a lot of legal speak, right? Basically, what she is saying, they are negotiating how they can make this as easy as possible. She's talking about hiding it from the judge, that they're trying to create jurisdiction for prison purposes because he wanted to go to jail in Palm Beach County. What Epstein's eventually their 13 or 19-month sentence looked like, so that you understand this. He went to jail and he had 16 hours a day of work release where he went to his office and worked, and then he had to go sleep in the jail. That was his jail sentence for raping over 40 women under the age of 18 and taking them to an island. And that is just what we know. Who knows what we don't know? This is only 5 years of his life. In any case, so they're negotiating with him. Maybe we could set a time to meet off campus so that you aren't seen coming to the federal courthouse, so that the press doesn't notice this. They're asking to be provided a copy of the non-prosecuting agreement that is potentially at play here. They hadn't agreed on anything yet. It's not like, oh, can you send me that document that we're going to sign? It's, hey, send me what you guys are looking at so I can pick it apart and send it back to you, and then you can resend me other ones. They wanted to give him an obstruction of justice plea deal at the federal level instead of charging him for raping 40 women. 40 girls, not even women, girls. These are under the age of 18. So this whole thing is a disaster. It's a disaster. Now, you will read in the media all about how all of this is Alex Acosta. Alex Acosta, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Throughout this 33-page opinion, Alex Acosta's name is mentioned twice. Obviously he is managing these people who are doing this negotiation and things have to go through them. But at the end of the day, all of the negotiation was happening at a higher level at the DOJ than Alex Acosta or the line prosecutor. They were following orders, because that's what you do in the DOJ. You follow orders when you are subordinate to another person. Another excerpt from the piece. On September 24, 2007, the line prosecutor sent an email to a prospective representative for Epstein victims entitled Conflict Check. The email confirmed the girls' status as victims, stating, "Please keep this confidential because these are minor victims. This is a preliminary list." Later, on September 24, 2007, the line prosecutor sent an email to Lefkowitz saying, "I have compiled a list of 34 confirmed minors." A correspondence continued on September 24, 2007, and the MPA was being executed. Lefkowitz sent an email to the line prosecutor stating, "Marie, please do whatever you can to keep this," i.e. the MPA, "from becoming public." Now I ask you, would you be afforded this same opportunity if the government compiled a list of 34 confirmed minors that you had sexually abused or assaulted? Would you be afforded this same treatment by the government? I don't think I would. I don't know who you are, but ask yourself the question and answer it for yourself. I'll ask myself. I would not be afforded this. I would be in jail at a $10 million bond. I'm going to link this, but I really want to just kind of get a little bit more flavor of how this is going on. So when we reach an agreement about the attorney representative for the girls, we can discuss what I can tell him and the girls about the agreement. So she's basically saying, listen, once we, have an attorney representative, we will collude with you and conspire with you to make sure that we aren't telling them more information than what you guys want the attorney to know. I know that Andy promised Chief Writer an update when a resolution was achieved. Rolando is calling, but Rolando knows not to tell Chief Writer about the money issue, just about what crimes Mr. Epstein is pleading guilty to and the amount of time that has been agreed to. Rolando is telling Chief Writer not to disclose the outcome to anyone. Chief Writer is the chief of police at the Palm Beach Police Department. He's retired at this time, but he was the chief at that time. They're trying to hide it from the police who referred it to them because they don't want the police to know. I mean, this is shameful. What it is shameful. These people should be ashamed of themselves for what they did. Now, unfortunately, our government is corrupt and this is the way things go. But there has to be a point in time where when no one else is looking, you do the right thing. And that clearly is not what happened here. This judge destroys the government for 33 pages of bitch slapping in the face. I mean, this judge came down on the government hard. So the judge continues to destroy the government for another 20-some pages related to basically this is about the victims' rights and their ability to confer with the government about this non-prosecution agreement that Epstein was given. So the judge, in summary, at the end, states the following. Jane Doe 1 and 2, motion for partial summary judgment is granted to the extent that the petitioner's right to conferral under the CVRA was violated. The United States cross motion for summary judgment is denied. Jane Doe and Jane 1 and 2, motion to compel answers, denied without prejudice. 1 and 2, motion for finding waiver of work product and similar protections by government and production of documents is denied without prejudice. The parties should confer and inform the court within 15 days of the date of entry of this order how they wish to proceed on determining the issue of what remedy, if any, should be applied in view of the violation. So basically, just so you understand the legalese, without prejudice means that there was something about the argument that they made that wasn't right with the law that they cited, but he is giving them the opportunity to resubmit, citing different laws and different legal standing in order to get this So when it's denied with prejudice, it's basically saying this is a sham lawsuit and you can't resubmit it. So without prejudice means that there is merit there. They didn't make their case compelling enough, but they're certainly willing and able to resubmit the case. So now they have 15 days, and this was on the 21st of February. So we're 5 days in now. They have 15 days to decide on how they wish to proceed on determining the issue of what remedy, if any. Now, I don't know if this is going to be something where we can reopen the Epstein case. Most likely it can't be reopened in Florida. It probably could, or in this district that it was done, so it's South Florida. It probably can be reopened in other jurisdictions. But really, I wanted to kind of talk about this, A, to make people aware, all right, that this guy exists. And then B, I want to talk about the coverage of it. So if you look at here, judge rules that prosecutors in Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse case broke the law. And then a federal judge has ruled that Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta broke the law in 2008, along with other prosecutors. All of these are going to be talking about how the Labor Secretary is the corrupt criminal here and that Jeffrey Epstein is friends with Donald Trump. In reality, Jeffrey Epstein was a member of Mar-a-Lago, and Trump kicked him out in 2007 after he solicited one of the masseuses at Mar-a-Lago. Trump, it's reported that he flew on this plane one time to this island where Epstein has these crazy orgy parties. I haven't been able to find that on the flight logs. Gawker had those out. They're here. These are all the logs. They're difficult to read, but I went through them and I haven't been able to find Donald Trump's name on any of these. And as you can see, there's 73 pages here. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's being reported that he was on there once, just to be fair. So, but these people are all going to be talking about how Epstein and Trump are friends. Trump used to go to dinner at his house, all this stuff, but none of it's actually cited. Bill Clinton was on this plane 27 times. That's cited. That's in those flight logs. This is another one talking about the cases, and how it's all about Trump and how Trump's friends with Kraft and Epstein, so Trump must be a diddler as well. Here again, federal judge, Trump's labor secretary, attorneys broke law in Epstein case. Alex Acosta's name was written in this opinion maybe 3 or 4 times. Most of the work was being done by line prosecutor and the FBI. So while he was supervising these people and managing these people, I don't know how much involvement he had. I think it was more Alex Acosta was being told what to do by higher ups. There's an interesting, crazy thing that was going on during this time at the DOJ. During this investigation, there were 5 if you include Comey, 5 different deputy attorney generals in a 2-year time frame. 2 of them were acting, to be fair, but they were leaving for reasons unbeknownst to us. And then the guy who was the final probably say on this ended up staying all the way through Obama's term. So it's interesting. Here, you have Vice, the salacious ammo even Donald Trump will use. This is interesting because this was written before all of this stuff happened. So this is in January of 2016. So they're talking about how Trump is going to bring up the Epstein thing, but then they're saying, well, he shouldn't bring up Epstein because, he was on there. So it says flight logs show Bill Clinton traveled at least 10 times. This is in February. In May, it came out that he was on there 20 some times. And Epstein's private island. In 2011 interview with her attorneys, Virginia Roberts, one of the teenagers preyed upon by Epstein, said he had told her that he had compromising information on Bill Clinton and that the former president owes me a favor. So this is intense. These people are kind of crazy. They're evil people. So here in a 2002 profile, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. Just like Trump, he's not going to disparage people unnecessarily for no reason. He's a lot of fun to be with. It even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do. Many of them are on the younger side. Now, I don't think that he's necessarily saying, I don't think he's saying here, I like younger women too, and I go to his island, but Jeffrey enjoys a social life. It sounds like just a general kind of comment for a profile. This is the interesting part I wanted to talk about. When asked about a subpoena served to Trump in 2009, Garton, which was one of his attorneys, said it never happened. The subpoena called for Trump to give a deposition in a case against Epstein. Garton's denial baffled Brad Edwards, one of Virginia Roberts' attorneys. There is no debate over what happened, Edwards told Vice News. I served Mr. Trump with a subpoena for a deposition in 2009. He talked with me voluntarily, and consequently, we withdrew the subpoena in light of his voluntary providing information. I can't imagine there being any dispute of this. Edwards also said that it is obvious Trump himself was not involved in any of Epstein's illicit activity. So this is the attorney for the victims that is fighting this case for 10 years, saying it's obvious to him that Trump was not involved in any of this stuff. And the fact that he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago also says, he probably wasn't involved in any of this stuff. It goes to, in 2000, Trump and Epstein reportedly attended a small party hosted by media magnate Conrad Black. So it's basically they're pulling up these like little things. Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's brother, testified in 2009. Trump flew on Jeffrey's private jet at least once. None of this to me makes like a strong case that Trump is a pedophile and hangs out with pedophiles. One of the interesting pieces here as well, when you look at this is Epstein's piece. So they're really trying to paint Trump in a bad light in this article. In 2010, Epstein pled the fifth when asked by a lawyer representing one of Epstein's victims about his relationship with Trump. Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump? What do you mean by personal relationship, sir? Have you ever socialized with him? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18? Although I'd like to answer that question, at least today I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights. So he's asserting rights, that obviously the right to self-incrimination, but also the rights afforded to him under, he already signed an MPA with the federal government, and this is a state matter, so he didn't want to put himself into legal jeopardy. That's what the 14th Amendment has to do with. So these articles that you'll see are all going to say Acosta is the person. You need to read the 33-page memo if you have concerns about Trump and Acosta and their involvement in this. Acosta basically says in there that, everything was, the judge even says everything was happening at higher up levels than the people on the ground. So I think these people were following orders, but at some point you have to put these poor girls over your career and say, I'm not going to do this. Another interesting one from October 2016 about this, obviously because it involves Trump, but this is from the New York Post, which is a friendly magazine, so I'm going to put these in the show notes so you can look at them. But very interesting. Now, why do I talk about this? Because I don't really fully understand what this means, and I don't think anyone really does yet. And I think we'll find out more when the government responds after conferring with the victims. I don't think there's anything that can be done for them that will help them in the case against Epstein, because Epstein, legally, he has a right to say, I did my time and we signed an NPA. I did everything according to the letter of the law of that NPA. Now the government, these girls don't actually want money either. They're not asking for money. They want Jeffrey Epstein to be held accountable in a real way. And the government is clearly culpable because when you look at the Victims' Rights Act, they violated like 4 sections of it. So they have created a problem for themselves that they probably thought was never going to come up. But why does all this matter? You've seen a lot of sex stuff over the last year. Pedophiles, sex rings. There was 2,400 people arrested in the first quarter of last year for sex crimes. You hear Trump talk about it a lot. He declared a national state of emergency relating to human trafficking, drugs, and sex crimes and corruption in this country. He did that in December of 2017, 2 months after this is the calm before the storm comment. So I think that a lot of this has to do with Trump trying to right the wrongs of what our government has egregiously done. And I think we'll find out more about that as time goes on. But I do believe that all of this stuff is potentially and probably related. I'm interested in the R. Kelly thing. I don't know why Avenatti is involved in that. it all seems like it's meant to take away from the Smollett case, because that was all that was in the news until all this other stuff started happening. So it seems to me like a narrative change operation than anything else. As far as the timing of all of it, I'm not denying that any of this happened, and the fact that Avenatti's involved with the R. Kelly thing is curious, to say the least. But in any case, I know I'm reaching my time. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate your subscribing and your listening, your comments and your likes. I enjoy the conversations that we have. Keep an eye on this. We got 10 more days. I'll probably talk about it again in 10 days when we find out what more is going on. But this is something that you should be aware of and be notified of when things are going on about it. Thanks so much for Pontification Nation. This is Ricky Skittle, and I'm out.